Good morning and welcome, everyone. So glad that you're here. It is a big thank you from Suncoast Business Expo to you folks for being here. It's a big help that you're here. My name is David Wagner. I'm an expert in cloud services, technology, business services. For about 35 years, I've worked with computers. My focus is exclusively in integration of systems for business purposes. And what that means is if you've ever dealt with a software provider who says, yeah, not really our issue, check with your hardware provider, and you've dealt with the hardware provider and they've said, yeah, not really sure. Well, I'm the one in the middle. I'm the one who says I can, take the info from the software and from the hardware, connect the dots, and integrate those technologies. Some of the technologies that you use in your business right now are infrastructure, which is your Wi-Fi, your cabled network, your internet access, your routers, your firewalls, your hardware security. Then you have your devices, like your workstations, your servers, your tablets, your smartphones. Then you have your platforms, which are your software that you're using to run on these devices. And so this integration component's kind of big. So the couple of things that I'm going to talk about today are cloud services and how to evaluate them. And then the second one is IT services and how to evaluate them. And the good news is we have documents outside at the booth that will walk you through the evaluation process. So I'm going to overview them for you here, and then out there in the booth, any one of our team can help you dig deeper if any of them were striking a nerve. One question we get a lot is misunderstanding of what cloud services are. So I'll give you the quick view of cloud services. You're renting software and hardware. That's a cloud service. It's been around a long time. It used to be called hosted services, but now they call them cloud services. And basically, it's equivalent to leasing a car. When you lease a car, your maintenance is covered, your support is covered, your upgrades are covered. You're just making a payment. That's what Office 365 is. That's what QuickBooks Online is. You never own anything. You're just renting it. So the first thing that you evaluate in cloud services is the financial impact to your company. In the same way that you would look at financing an automobile versus leasing an automobile. There is a cost involved above just the fee of the cloud services in the total implementation to the company. So one step in doing the financial is to understand it is going to cost more, bottom line. So if you buy QuickBooks, load it in your environment and run it, it costs less over 3 to 5 years to do that than it does to rent QuickBooks for 3 to 5 years. So the question isn't, why am I paying more? The question is, what am I getting out of that more? So for example, with Office 365, they have multiple data centers all the way across the US. And if you have teams in New York, teams in Chicago, teams in California, they're connecting respectively to their respective data centers. So they have redundancy, they have speed capabilities that are beyond trying to go from Washington to Florida to grab data. So one benefit of cloud services might be a wide distribution of your staff. And maybe that wide distribution of your staff and the enhanced speed that they're going to see in redundancy is worth the elevated expense that you're going to spend in the cloud services. So step one is to evaluate in the finances how much it's going to cost you versus owning it yourself in the same way you would a car. And then what are the benefits going to be to the cloud service hosting versus what are the benefits if you have them locally. The second thing to understand when you're evaluating cloud services is what we call feature loss. You lose features in cloud services. Okay? And for example, I'll go back to QuickBooks. When you have QuickBooks internally and you say, I'm about to do a pretty big function, and before I do that function, which I'm not sure if I'm going to screw up my books or not, I'd like to run a backup. So you just do a quick backup, save your file. Now you can do your QuickBooks big function. And if it goes south and you go, that didn't come out the way I wanted it to, you can just restore your backup. That is not possible in QuickBooks Online. In QuickBooks Online, you're attached, you're running, they do their backups nightly, and that's it. So the point again is you have to evaluate feature loss. You're going to lose some features that they won't provide when you go with a cloud service. Here's an option in Office 365 as far as feature loss is concerned. Office 365 limits all attachments to 25 meg. That's it. There's no changing it. That's their upper limit. When you have your own Exchange server, you can decide to make it whatever you want. So there's an example of feature loss. So one of the important questions to ask is call the cloud service provider or chat with them online and ask them the specific question, what features are not available in the online version, the cloud-hosted version, that are available in my self-hosted version? So we've covered your financial and your feature loss. Now we're going to move to administrative. Your administrative functions of cloud services are more in-depth and changed than your administration of local services. So again, an example, QuickBooks. If you have QuickBooks loaded on your servers, and that's what you're operating, you understand and know how your administration works in those QuickBooks. You know how to add users, how to take users away, flexibility of permissions for different users, flexibility for storing files in different places. You learn how to administrate the program. Your cloud services is not administrated the same way. So when you go to QuickBooks Online, for example, and you try to add users or change permissions, it doesn't look anything like the administration of the in-house version. So your administration is going to change. And why that's important is I'm going to give you a huge example. There's a famous and very large email filtering platform. And they offer you both the appliance that you buy and put in your network, and they offer you the cloud-hosted filtering. In the cloud-hosted filtering, they will not allow you to whitelist a domain. So you can't say, allow all mail from anybody at abc.com through my filter. Instead, if they have 150 employees, you have to add Bob at abc.com and then Mary at abc.com, and for all 150. And then every time they get a new employee, you got to go in and add them to the filter. Versus the appliance that sits in your network, you can just say star at abc.com and everybody comes in. So why would they do that? Well, if you whitelist somebody or a domain like Gmail, now all of a sudden you're getting all kinds of spam in. Now you're calling their support line saying, why is your spam filter not blocking mine? So one, they cut down on their support by limiting that feature. Two, they want to be able to say to the world, we are 99.7% effective at filtering spam. And if you whitelist spam through there, that number goes down. So they're not reasons that benefit you, but they're reasons that benefit them. So the important thing to consider here is you have to, as you're evaluating cloud services, say, what's the financial impact? What features am I going to lose? How is my administration going to change? Because you got to understand how that's going to change in order to evaluate correctly whether or not it's going to be a good fit for your company. The last piece is productivity. There is almost always a productivity hit in moving to the cloud. And again, I'll use QuickBooks as an example. We have a client who recently had to move away from QuickBooks Online because they couldn't enter invoices fast enough. When you're entering invoices in your version that you host yourself, it's as fast as you type. But when you enter invoices on QuickBooks Online, after you get everything typed in, every drop-down box takes longer to fill in. And when you hit submit, tick, 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 okay. And they couldn't take that hit in productivity loss, so they had to move it back inside. Now, there are other productivity gains that can happen, which is why you have to evaluate productivity in cloud services on both sections. You have to see, where am I going to lose productivity and where am I going to gain productivity? So if you stick with those four elements of evaluating cloud services before you do the trial, because the point of the trial is now I know what to look for. So if you've evaluated financial, administrative, productivity, and feature loss, and you understand what you're getting into, now you launch the trial. Now you know what to look for, and you're going to do your tests of how is this going to impact our team. Now again, there's a lot, this document that we have outside goes in detail of each one of these categories and tells you specifically how to address each one of them, and we'll answer any questions you have right outside at the booth on those. The second topic that I'm covering today is the same process with your IT services provider. How do you tell if you have the right one? What to do about it if you don't, how to measure, what to expect. And we have this card that you can pick up outside at the booth because it's the 5 questions that will answer if you're with the right IT provider. Now, of course, there's a lot more than 5, but these are the 5 powerful ones. For example, the first one is, did you pay what you expected last year? And if the answer is no, well, why? Did you overspend? Did you underspend? And I'm not here to tell you either. I'm here to say your IT team should be working with you every 6 months developing what your budget is on the go forward, and then that budget should be hit. IT is kind of a major part of your business. So in the same way that you would budget what our electric bill should be, what our car expense should be, what our building expense should be, your IT budget should be defined. And it moves because you have some unexpected things that pop up. You have growth that comes in. Now we need new laptops and workstations. Most of this is predictable if you ask the right questions. Which computers need to be replaced when? So again, one measure of whether or not you're with the right IT service provider is, did you spend more than you expected? Second one is, does your IT provider respond quickly? Or are you oftentimes waiting on them? And why that's important is because a lot of service providers and even individuals and even internal IT support companies maybe don't understand that your needs happen when they happen. So when you say things like, I have a closing in 35 minutes and the documents aren't printing out of the printer, if they can't connect the dots that there's going to be 7 people arriving at your office to sign documents, and this closing was 36 days in the making, and some people flew in from out of town. This is not optional, where other times you might say, yeah, I can't print this, I need to print it before tomorrow at noon because I go out at 3 o'clock. That should be a very important part of what your provider is providing. If they are not responsive when you need them to be responsive, if instead they're saying the first thing I have available is tomorrow at 10, even though you told them I need to have this done by noon, that's a check in the no column of them being responsive. So that's kind of a big one. It also says a lot about the culture of the company and of the team. Third one is, do you feel your IT is fully planned? That's a tough question. So asking you in the room right now, do you feel like you have a full understanding of where your IT is headed, at what speed, and whether or not it's going to meet your goals as you move forward? If the answer is no, it's a question that your IT provider should not leave you wondering. If the question's no because every meeting they ask you to have, you say, I'm too busy, then maybe you should change that. But if they're not offering to discuss it, that's kind of an issue. Next one is, has your current IT provider delivered on what they promised? If no, maybe there's a disconnect between the sales side of their company and the delivery side of the company, which those two things really should be integrated. Sales should not be offering or making promises that delivery cannot provide. And if that's happening routinely, if you sit back and you feel, well, they told me I was going to get X, Y, and Z, and I got A, B, and C, then it's another check in the box of maybe you're not with the right company. And the last one is, what is your data recovery and disaster recovery testing process? If you're doing backups, and if they're doing data backup and disaster planning with you, but you're not testing it, and they're not asking you to test it, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to have a disaster, or you're going to have a data loss, and you're going to uncover holes in that process. And it's the wrong time to uncover holes in that process. You don't want to be on the way to the airport to pick up a significant other, get a flat tire, and open the trunk and go, oh, I don't have a spare. It's kind of the wrong time. It's over at that point. So this data retention and processing where you test it is critical to find out and learn from what are we going to fail in when we have to execute this for real. So it's not that you execute it once. I've never seen once where you execute it and goes, that was perfect. Everything went great. It's always, this didn't work. We were not prepared for this. This was unexpected. So that process is pretty important. Not only important to perform it, but it's important to test it. Now on the back of this card, we go into just a little snippet, and I'll give you a quick hit of that. If you answered no to one or two of these, you might be with the right IT provider. Maybe you just need to sit down and discuss with them that you got these couple of issues and we'd like to tighten these up. But we still recommend, if you answered no to a couple of them, that you have a third party come in and give you a deeper review, an expert to come in and take a look at all of these parameters and see if they agree. If you answered no on 2 or more, you're most likely more than a couple of tweaks away from the right IT provider, and maybe it's time to consider looking at other options. That's where these other documents come in that we have out in the booth. We have 3. And again, these are not about us. We don't even mention our name in these documents in much way that I haven't even mentioned my name here. Okay? This is about what you need to do for your business and for your health, not for us. The first one is what to ask when choosing a support company. It's a 2-pager, and I'll give you just a quick example. Will I get a dedicated engineer? And here's the paragraph under that. It's unreasonable to expect you'll always deal with the same engineer, but most support companies allocate work to engineers best suited to each particular job. However, this is still a good question to ask. If they say yes, consider why. Do they only have a limited number of engineers, for example? And that's why you're always going to be working with the same person. So again, it's not telling you how to grade. It's not saying if they say yes, run. If they say no, take them. It's helping you assess their answer and understand how it relates to you. That's the important part of that document. So this first one is what to ask when choosing a support company, how to interview a support company. The second one is how to switch IT companies. It's kind of big. Most everybody I meet does not understand the ramifications of changing IT companies. That gives them pause. It makes them delay the decision. They're uncomfortable, and it's very hard to have business owners make a decision on something that they're uncomfortable with. So if you ask them, I'd like you to make a decision on this new building. It's going to be comparable to the price that you're paying now. Sign here. Most of you would be saying that's not enough information. So it's the info that you need, and this is the info on how to do it. When you switch IT companies, done correctly, you minimize your exposure, you minimize your risk, you have all your documentation, and it's a smooth transition. When you're fighting with an IT provider that's not going to be helpful or forthcoming, which we encounter. We take over companies and find out that, wow, these people, this other IT provider is doing everything they can to make this difficult, which I've never understood. I don't know how you continue going forward in the community if they're not going to help you through the transition. But this document helps you outline exactly what you need before you alert them, how to alert them, and how to perform the transition, and what you should expect from the team that you're transitioning to. They're the ones who are really excited and happy to be involved. So as much as you can leverage them, that document shows that. And the third document is, are you paying too much for IT support? And that document helps you understand what the industry averages are, how to gauge in your business what your averages should be, so that you can digest. This IT provider, I'm interviewing 6, and this one's giving me a price of that, and this one's giving me a price of this. What's the difference? And this document helps you go through and ask the questions of how to get to the bottom of what that difference is and what you should expect. So that's the quick overview. The documents will really help you get in detail of that whole process. And it'll help you get full control over it to where now all of a sudden you say, okay, I'm empowered to decide whether or not these cloud services are going to benefit my company and be worth it, and I'm going to get value back. And the second one is it's going to help you understand, am I with the right IT provider? Let me answer these questions and see if I am. And if I'm not, what do I do about it? And if I'm close, how do I mend that with them and get on track? And if I am with the right IT provider, thank you for confirming that I am. Does that spawn any questions from anyone? We still have a couple of minutes left, just about 2 before the next speaker. Yes, sir. What's the name? Well, we have 22 people. I personally have not worked with Jonas software, but there's very good possibility that people in our staff have. We could get you that answer. Sure, sure. Yeah, POS systems, while they're all different, they all deal with inventory, purchasing and receiving, and then do you have RMA in your industry where you have items coming back and you have to send them back? Sure, there you go. Yeah, so their platform is always going to be different if it's SQL or if it's MySQL, if it's Unix, and that's where we come in is, again, we're experts at integration. So where they're leaving you with, hey, I can give you the software and I can teach you how to use the software. Another way I like to answer that question, you know, we are not experts in QuickBooks. If you ask me about a chart of accounts, I go, a chart of what? But when you ask your CPA chart of accounts, they're boom, boom, boom. But when you ask your CPA, what's the protocol that I'm using to share QuickBooks across my network and why is it running slow? That's when your CPA goes, if it's inside QuickBooks, I got it. If it's outside QuickBooks, I don't. Same thing for us. In the POS software, we are absolute experts with barcoding, printing receipts, and all the Eltron printers that do that function, the network serving, the backbone, the infrastructure. So any gaps there we can fill, or any IT company can look at and fill. While the experts in the software are the ones who wrote it, and that's who we would defer to for any functions inside the software. Any other questions from anyone? We have about a minute left. Super. Well, we're out at the booth. It's the Velocity IQ booth. Happy to answer any questions on any topics. We do have a top engineer here named Mike Mona. He's one of the top engineers we've ever had, been with the company about 17 years, knows his stuff inside and out, just a great guy. He's happy to assist you with any questions, and I am as well. Thank you very much again for coming. We'll be doing this again and hope to see some of the same faces back next time. Thank you.